All right, so go ahead and turn to page 3 on 9.7. Yesterday we learned about law of sine. What kind of triangle do we use the law of sine and cosine on? Any triangle. All right. Because can you use the Pythagorean Theorem on an obtuse triangle? No. And you can't use SOHCAHTOA, opposite, hypotenuse, all that stuff. You can't use it on a non-right triangle. All right, law of sines. So we learned about the law of sines. I'm just going to show you an instance where you would use it. You want to look for a known pair. Does anybody remember what a known pair looked like?
An angle and a side.
An angle and a side. Where was the side in comparison to the angle? Across from it. So if you know an angle and a side, you can use the law of sines. Okay, so this one, it says use the law of sines, so we know we are going to, but we'll go ahead and locate. It says, a surveyor makes the measurements shown to determine the length of a bridge to be built across a small lake from the north picnic area to the south picnic area. We want to find the length of the bridge. So go ahead and locate the north and the south picnic area. We want a bridge between them. So we need to find the length of that bridge. The reason we can use the law of sine is we know 150. It looks like we don't know the angle across from it, but how can I find that angle? Add and subtract from 180. So we're going to add 71 and 60, which makes 131. And then do 180 minus 131. So what is that last angle going to be?
59.
Close. Almost. 49. So we have a known pair. We know an angle and a side. They're both B. We want to find side C. So when we set up the law of sine, we're going to use side C. And we're going to put it over sine of angle C. And then we will set it equal. Which side will I put in the top? Side B, because 150 is across from B, over sine of angle B. You don't have to write this every time. I just write it just so you know what we're doing and why. Do we know the length of C? No, that's why we put it in the top. You always want what's missing in the top. And then what is angle C? 60 degrees. What's the length of B? 150 over sine of angle B, 49. So once you've set up this proportion, C is being divided by sine of 60. So we're going to multiply both sides by sine of 60. Is 60 the same as sine of 60? No. It is not. So make sure you type in sine. All right, so after we type it in, what do we get? What do we get? 172.1, okay. And then this would be meters, I believe. Questions on the law of sine? At the end of class, we'll use IXL and let you practice the law of sine a couple times. But first, we're going to talk about the law of cosine. So what happens if you don't have a known pair? You have to use the law of cosine to find a known pair. So again, you use this one for two cases. And essentially, if you don't have an angle and a side across from them, you're going to use the law of cosine to find an angle and a side. So I'll show you it's a formula. You'll learn the pattern really quickly. But you're going to use it for the side angle side case. If it's on your paper, you can highlight it. But just to show you, that means you would know a side, an angle, and a side. So you don't have a known pair. There's no angle or a side across from an angle and vice versa. The second case is for side, side, side. What would you know for side, side, side? All the sides. So I don't know an angle. You don't have a known pair. You have to use the law of cosine. You'll use the law of cosine once, and then you'll use the law of sine with whatever information you find. So So that's why I said use law of sine 9 out of 10 times. Cosine you'll use once, and then you'll use law of sine from there. So I will show you each of these. There are 3 ways to set it up if you had a triangle that looked like the one on the right. What do lowercase letters represent? Sides, and uppercase are angles. So the first portion comes from the Pythagorean Theorem. A squared equals b squared plus c squared. So you want to write this down. A squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cosine of angle A. Correct. I'll explain it. So if you notice, this is a side, right? It should match whatever angle is back here. So I'm just showing you the pattern. This will be the side, that'll be the angle. Whatever 2 letters are here, whatever 2 sides are here, they're also going to be here. So that's going to be your pattern. Like Braden just asked, what's happening when a number is next to a letter? It's multiplying. So all of this is multiplied together. Bless you. Minus 2 times b times c times cosine of angle A. So just for you to know. So let's try to figure out what b squared would equal. If you know the pattern, what will come next here? B squared equals a squared plus c squared minus 2ac cosine of angle B. That's correct. The last one you could use, it says c squared. So c squared would equal a squared plus b squared minus 2ab, yep. And then cosine of angle C. Good. So that's the pattern. You'll get used to it. But again, you really only use this once, and then you use the law of sine next. The question that people ask is, how do I know which one to solve for? Or which one to set up? And essentially, you choose the letter based on your given or your missing angle. So go ahead and fill that in. You will use A, B, or C based on whatever angle you're missing, what angle you're looking for, or the angle that you were given. So that's important information. I would highlight that if you have your highlighter out. So I'll show you what that means. So I just gave these numbers, 11, 12, 13. Okay. So usually you solve for the obtuse angle first, and I'll explain why. Which of these is the obtuse angle? Angle B. So you'd want to solve for angle B. You would use the b squared formula. Okay, so we would be missing angle B. We would want to set up the b squared formula. Another situation you might find yourself in is something like this. What angle are we given? Angle A, so we'd have to set up the A formula. Okay, we would end up finding this side via this formula. All right, so we're going to practice here. Solve the triangle, round decimal answers to the nearest tenth. So again, I can't use the law of sine. I don't have a matching angle inside. I don't have a known pair. I have 34 degrees, but I don't know the side across from it. I have 14. I don't know that angle. The same thing with 11. I don't know that angle. So I have to first use the law of cosine. Okay, what angle was I given? 34, which is B, right? So I'm going to have to use the b squared formula. And I'll show you what it will look like. So b squared equals a squared plus c squared minus 2ac cosine of angle B. In every equation you want one thing missing. If you tried to set up a different one, you would have 2 things missing. So this is the only equation you could set up. Do I know the length of B? I do not at the moment. Do I know the length of A? Yes, what is it? 11. So plug in 11 squared. All right, and then C is 14. So you just keep plugging in. Minus 2. A is still 11. C is still 14. And then cosine, what is angle B? 34 degrees. This is one that you should like because your calculator will actually do most of the work for you. Since nothing is missing on the right side, you can just type all of that into your calculator. So 11 squared plus 14 squared minus 2. Remember, this is all being multiplied. So 2 times 11 times 14 times cosine of 34. Don't hit clear because you're going to get a number. So 11 squared plus 14 squared minus 2 times 11 times 14 cosine of 34. You got 61 point something, right? I would leave it in your calculator. I'm going to write it down just because I'm recording. But I would leave it in your calculator. What do we have to do next? Square root. Because we have, that's what b squared equals. So you can hit square root of previous answer, and it will have saved that long decimal for you. So what do we get for B? 7.9. Good. So 7.9. All right. Solve the triangle means find everything, so we will still have to solve for other things. So, do you want to solve for angle A or angle C next? Sorry, I forgot to mention this. I would write this down. How do I want to say it? You'll only find acute angles with the law of sine. Your calculator doesn't have the function. If you type in an obtuse angle, it won't work out for you. So, we will find the smaller angle. Because which one of these is going to be obtuse? C. So, we can't plug in C into the law of sine and find like the obtuse angle. It's not going to be correct. So, we're going to find A. Okay. So, we're going to find angle A using our law of sine. So remember that you want what's missing on the top. So sine of angle A over what's going to go on the bottom? 11. And then we want to use our known pair. So sine, what's my known pair are the b's, right? So sine of 34 over 7.9. So what do we do next?
Multiply times 11.
Good. Times 11. Remember, leave this in your calculator. It's going to be a very long decimal. So I'll write down your decimal. You don't have to. But it's 0.77862330301, yeah? Okay, so how do I get A by itself if it's attached to sine? Use the inverse. Good. So go ahead and hit shift sign of your previous answer. Because your previous answer will remember it. And then we get 51.1. So the measure of angle A is 51.1. So that brings us to C. You can't find an obtuse angle with the law of sine. So what can we do to find the measure of angle C? Don't overthink it. Add and subtract from 180. Let's go ahead and add them together. 34 and 51.5. 85.5, yeah? It's Subtract that from 180. Is it 94.5? Beautiful.
Yes.
Perfect. So how did I know to start with b squared? Because what? Because that was the angle they gave me. So that's where we started. Once you use the law of cosine, from there you have a known pair, and you'll use the law of sine. Okay? We'll keep practicing. This is just saying what I just told you. We found the smaller angle first because the inverse of sine doesn't work for an obtuse angle. So when you hit shift sine, it'll only do acute angles. All right, this next one is a little harder. Okay, solve the triangle. Round decimal lines to the nearest tenth. It's harder because we're going to be solving for an angle. So try not, some of you like to work ahead. There's a common math mistake that people make, and I don't want you to make it and then have to erase it all. But where we're going to start, we can't find an obtuse angle with the law of sine. We registering that? So we have to find the obtuse angle with the law of cosine in order to not have to do it with the law of sine. Does that make sense? We want to find the obtuse so that we got it out of the way and can use the law of sine. So which of these is the obtuse angle? B, right? Because it's across from 27. It's the biggest angle. So we need to find that angle first using the law of cosine. So b squared equals a squared plus c squared minus 2ac cosine of angle B. So this one is harder because we don't know the angle. You can't plug everything in all at once, and I'll show you what that will look like. What is B, my side B? 27. What is side A? 12. So 12 squared. And then C is 20. So don't start typing anything in yet. Minus 2 times A, which we said was 12. And then C is 20 times cosine of B. So that's a lot. And before we could type everything in because we weren't missing anything. But here's essentially what you have. And let's just figure out if this were a regular equation, what we could do. If it looked like this, minus 2 times 12 times 20x, would I be able to combine all of the right side? No. Because x makes it a different term, right? A different type of term. The same thing with cosine of b. This is being multiplied times negative 2 times 12 times 20. So if we're doing the order of operations correctly, we can't combine all of this with all of this. We have to do them separately and deal with them separately. So here's what we can do. You can go ahead and type in, obviously 27 squared won't change. 27 squared is 729. You can type in these two together because they're just 12 squared plus 20 squared. They're not attached to anything. They're being added together. So what do we get for that? 544. You can multiply these all together, but it's still attached to cosine of b. So whatever we get is still in front of cosine of b. So what is negative 2 times 12 times 20? Negative 480. All right, so we continue to solve. If this were an x instead of cosine of b, what would we do next? We're going to subtract. Good. Subtract 544. This is especially a time you do not want to clear your calculator. 729 minus 544. What do we get? 185 equals negative 480 cosine of b. So what is the 480 doing to cosine? multiplying. So we're going to have to divide. Make sure you divide by negative 480 or your answer will be very different. So mine shows a fraction. Yours could show a decimal. It doesn't really matter. That's what cosine of b equals. So how do I get angle B by itself? I'm solving for an angle. So I what? Inverse. So I'm going to use the inverse button. Sorry, I have to write over here. So shift cosine, use your previous answer. What do we get? 112.7. Did anybody not get 112.7? $112.7. All right, so do we have a known pair? Yes, we have an angle and a side. We know both for, so we can use the law of sines again. So which angle, it doesn't matter anymore. They're both acute. You just can't hit shift sine and get an obtuse angle, okay? But these are both acute, so we can solve for either one. Which one would you like to solve for? A, sounds good. So sine of angle A is what we're looking for. Over side A, which is 12. And we want to use our known pair. So sine angle B is 112.7 over 27. So then what do? Multiply times 12. So what do we get when we do sine of 112.7 divided by 27 times 12? I got 0.4100169. Sounds good? So that's what sine of A equals. So how do I figure out what angle A equals? Shift sine, and then use your previous answer button. So shift sine, previous answer. So the measure of angle A is 24.2 degrees. So then what's the simplest way to find the measure of angle C now? Yeah, add them and subtract from 180. So 112.7 plus 24.2, and then subtract them from 180. What do we get? 43.1 degrees. We'll do one more together, and then you'll start practicing. We're just going to do law of sines today on the IXL, but we'll practice one more of these. This is just saying the same thing. We found the largest angle because you can't use the inverse to find an obtuse angle. All right, so I gave my last class a choice of which one they wanted to do today to see again. They picked this one. They thought this one was harder. Which one would you rather? Okay, we could do B first. All right, so can I use the law of sine? No, I got to use the law of cosine. All right, so you want to look for the obtuse angle because the law of cosine can find an obtuse angle, but the law of sine, you cannot find an obtuse angle. So which one of these is going to be obtuse? Angle A. All right, so we'll do A squared equals B squared plus C squared minus 2BC cosine of angle A. So which one is side A? 30, because it's across from angle A. And then we'll have 27 squared plus 18 squared minus 2 times 27 times 18 cosine of angle A. So this is the one you can't type in all at once. What is 30 squared? 900. You can type in 27 squared plus 18 squared. So what do we get? 1,000 what?
53.
53. Sounds good. And then minus 2 times 27 times 18. What do we get? Negative 972. And then we don't know angle A, so we're finding. So cosine of A. What do we do next? Subtract 1,053. We are going to get a negative. Most people, if they get this wrong, this is an important step. So make sure you do get a negative. What is 900 minus 1,053? Negative 153. And then that still equals negative 972 cosine of A. So how do we get cosine of A by itself? Divide. So again, I would leave it in your calculator. It does reduce, so mine gave me 17 over 108. But that's what cosine of A equals. So we are going to hit shift of your previous answer. Shift cosine. So what do we get for the measure of angle A? 80.9. So that means all of them are going to be acute. That was our biggest angle. So they're all going to be acute. All right, so do we have a known pair now? Do we know a side and an angle? Yes, so we can use the law of cosine. The remaining angles are acute, so we could find either one. I know they're both acute because this was my biggest side, so this is my biggest angle, which means both of these have to be smaller than 80, so they're both acute. Which one would you like to solve for? C. Well, I heard C first, so we're going to do C. There wasn't a wrong answer. Could have done either of them. So C, again, we have a known pair, so we're going to use law of sine. So I'm going to give myself some room. So sine of angle C, what will I put in the denominator? 18 will equal sine. We found A to be 80.9. And then side A is 30. So times 18 on both sides. So sine of 80.9 over 30 times 18. I got 0.5924482841. Sound good? Okay. So then how do I find the angle from there? Shift of which one? Sine. Good. All right, so shift sine of your previous answer. So what did we get? 36.3 degrees. Good. Then we could just find B by adding and subtracting. Let's go ahead and add 80.9 plus 36.3 and then subtract them from 180. What did we get?
62 point something. I got 8. But
You got 8.
like 62.8. But it was like a decimal, I just rounded it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. 62.8 is good. Yep. 9 and 3 make 12. My brain wasn't computing that. So the 8 would make it. Yeah.